So for today's lesson, we're going to tackle about Python list. So last time class, napag-aralan na natin yung array. And when it comes to array, one of its key characteristics is that you have to make sure that you first things first, na import mo class ng you imported properly the array module before you could proceed typing your array code because it's very crucial. Another thing class, with array, we are also introduced with other methods that we can do with our array or array programs. And then array is very specific with the data type that you're going to use. So aside from that, you can only use a single data type. And you have to choose whether it is, in the case of majority of data types that you're going to use in array, you have to choose whether that is signed or unsigned integer. So pag sinabi natin class na signed integer, it means na yung array mo, it accepts both positive and negative values. When we say on the other hand unsigned array, it means that the array only accepts positive values. Of course, there are exceptions such as the likes of Unicode. So we don't need to declare whether it is a signed or unsigned since Python Unicode siya. So now, what we're going to tackle naman is Python list. So si list, if meron na kayong idea about how to create a basic array condition or array syntax inside your Python compiler, then it will be or it is manageable or easier for you to understand list. Kasi madali lang siya. Yung ibang method na ginamit natin kay array, pwede rin nating i-adapt kay list. And also, it is almost similar on how we program our Python array with list. So may mga slight differences lang. Pero ang pinagkaiba class ni Python list, next slide, it is a collection that allows us to put many values in a single variable. So ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Sa isang variable, syempre, pag nagde-declare ka ng Python list, you have to think of a variable. Now, it depends on what variable name ang gusto nyo gamitin as long as it is a proper naming convention na pang variable. And also, you have to keep in mind class na you should avoid using reserved keywords in naming your variable. And meron nga palang argument class. Since I have given you a quiz, right? Well, you have to identify whether the following terms or variable is a valid Python identifier. So meron akong question about switch and case. So I have not returned it yet to you, right? So binonus ko siya. Why? Kasi po, si switch and case, if you have, ang pinapa-download ko sa inyo, di ba, Python 3.9.7. So, correct me if I'm wrong, basta may 3.9. So, ngayon class, yung mga older versions ni Python, up to its version na 3.9, it does not have or it does not contain any switch case statement method. Pwede mo siyang ma-imitate using other programming techniques, pero wala si Python 3.9 hanggang doon sa older versions niya nun. However, Python now accepts switch case condition sa latest version niya na 3.10. So, I do not advise that you download 3.10 as of the time of this recording. Kasi class, hindi pa siya fully released. So, kumbaga parang siguro if I have to explain it in layman's terms, parang naka-beta version pa siya or for trial version pa, hindi pa 100% complete. So, it's safe to install 3.9 instead. Pero expect na walang switch case statement doon. Okay? So, yun yung just to clear the clarification kasi there are some other students that ask me, Ma'am, there is no switch. Ma'am, there is a switch condition. So, yes, the answer is yes and no. Depende doon sa tinype nyo na Python version. Okay? So, kaya ko nabanggit class. Baka kasi nabanggit ko kasi sa variable naming condition. So, here's our other things that you should know about Python. So, next slide. Just look on the left part of the screen. So, I'll just read some of the descriptions about Python list. So number 1, a list can contain any Python type. Although it's not really common, a list can also contain a mix of Python types, including strings, floats, booleans, and so on. Number 2, lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. And number 3, lists are one of the 4 built-in data types in Python used to store collections of data. The other are tuple, set, and dictionary, all with different qualities and usage. So itong tuple, set, and dictionary, we will discuss that in the next slide. Okay? So I intended to divide this recording per topic. So, si list class, balik tayo sa description number 2, we can store multiple items in a single variable. Ma'am, what do we mean by that? So, just like with array, with tuples, pwede tayong mag-store ng multiple items sa iisang variable. Pwede siyang, so, yung isa nating variable, pwede magkaroon ng iba't ibang values. The only difference lang, class, with Python list and array, si array, kailangan declare mo yung data type na gagamitin, and then, kailangan din iisang data type lang. Pero with list, look at the example on the left side. Pwedeng iba't ibang types of data sa isang container. So, here we have a variable neighbors, and then meron siya class bracket kasi ganito tayo mag-declare ng list. And then we have a string. Syempre sa string, we can use a single quotation or a double quotation. We can have strings or characters. So we have Marites, Karen, and Juana as our string inside neighbors. And then we have included integer 34 and negative 19. And then we have a float data type 30.5. So pwede po siya kay list. Magra-run yung program nyo at hindi magkaka-error. So next naman, pwede rin naman kay list yung example dito sa Squid Game. So, I use this reference just to stay parang relevant. Ayan. So, we have the actor's name like Gong Yu, Park Hee-soo, Wee Ha-jun. Ayan. So, pwede po kay list na magkakaibang data type yung ilalagay nyo sa isang collection. And pwede din naman na magkakamukang data type yung ilalagay nyo sa isang collection. Next. What is not a collection? Now, most of our variables have one value in them. When we put a new value in the variable, the old value is overwritten. So, with list class, always keep in mind that we can alter the value. However, we should hindi siya considered as a part of collection if it behaves that it begs to differ all of the contents, like the sample that we have here. Just observe it. Okay? So, next naman, example of list in particular. So, ito class, papakita ko sa inyo paano siya pinoprogram inside a compiler. So, we have friends, Marites, Karen, and Juana. So, yung ginamit nating list na data type dito ay isa lang, string. So, paano natin siya ipiprint? So, madali lang din kung paano natin ipiniprint si array. We use the print, we use the keyword print, and then call natin kung ano yung variable name natin, which is friends, and then create a bracket. Ang ilalagay natin class sa bracket ay based on the index location. So, ang index location, ang count natin ay 0, 1, 2, 3 typically. So, you call on 1 and it will print out Karen. Why? Kasi si Marites, its index location is 0, Karen's index location is 1, and Juana's index location is 3. So, pag tinawag natin 1, ang ipiprint niya ay si Karen. Just refer to the table that you see. So, ganito mag-count din si list, parang si array. So, often, in programming, we need to store data in a way we can easily access and modify. In most languages, this is done with arrays or list or any other similar methods. Now, a list is a sequential collection of values called elements, where each value is identified by an index. The first index is 0, so we count arrays or we call arrays based on the index. So, ang index natin, the count always starts with 0. It is very common in list, arrays, and strings. So, if you still remember, class, bago tayo sa topic na array, gumamit tayo ng slice method sa ating strings in order to call a particular value ng string or ma-print natin siya. So, ang binase din natin ay via index location. So, si list, array, strings, and other built-in kay Python also makes use of indexing. Now, the simplest way to create a list in Python is to enclose the elements in square brackets. The elements of a list do not have to be of the same type. Example, ayan. So, ito class, ito yung pinag-run ko using the compiler. So, like for example, I have set a sample x na variable with the contents na isang string na si Cathy, float na 1.2, and then integer na 2, positive 2, negative 5 at isang character. So, mag-e-error po ba siya? Hindi po. And then, ginamitan ko siya ng method na append, pop, insert, remove. Ayan. So, yung mga naka-comment sign or naka-comment dito, like value, so it indicates it indicates some sort of explanation kung ano yung dapat nating ilagay dun sa argument inside our method. So, I will further explain it. And also, on its lower part, ito yung counterpart na, na output. So, ito yung lumabas na output from typing all of the related methods inside. So, individual elements of a list. So, how do we access a particular element sa isang list? Halimbawa, marami tayong nakalagay sa ating list, tapos isa lang gusto nating i-print. So, paano natin gagawin yan? So, na-discuss ko nga class is Python is based on index. Pag tatawagin natin siya most of the time, we have to declare its index location. So, ang start ng bilang natin sa bawat data sa loob ng Python ay 0. So, for example, we have a variable family. Ayan. So, naglagay ako ng, disregard the name references. Naglagay ako ng strings and then ng mga integers and float. So, paano ang gusto ko lang i-print ay si Sarah Patatas. So, pang ilan sa index location si Sarah Patatas. So, si Minchin ay 0, si Sarah yung number 1. So, all you have to do is to type the keyword print and then enclose in a parenthesis, tawagin natin yung pangalan ng array which is family, add a square bracket, and inside the square bracket class, doon natin ilalagay yung index location. So, if we have print family 1, it will print Sarah Patatas. If we duplicate it 3 times, the answer would still be the same. It will print Sarah Patatas thrice. Next naman, how about if I wanted to print different datas inside? Using the same variable with the same content. So again, we're going to do what we usually do. Ang mababago lang is yung indexes na nakalagay sa square bracket. So dito, isa naging pang 1, yung isa 0 ay naging 5. So pag print natin sila, it will only show yung mga particular indexes na choose natin na i-print. Yung pang number 1, si Sarah Patatas pa din. Yung pang number 0, sa bilang ng index ay si Minchin Masungit. At yung pang 5 naman ay yung value na integer na 33. So, ganun lang class ng individual elements of list. Of course, we have other ways of printing a individual elements of list, pero the simplest would be this. Okay? So, index notation. So, ito na yung pinag-uusapan natin nun. So, with list, I have here, like for example, Python. So, we could call it from, its start would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, if ang print natin ay nagsisimula sa negative number, paano kaya yon? So, basically, class, babasahin ni Python ay pabaligtad. In reverse, yung nakalagay na values or elements inside your list collection. Like for example, if I print in, so meron tayo ditong variable na my list with a value na characters na makakabuo ng Python na word. Ayan, Python. So pag tinype natin negative 1, pinrint natin si negative 1, it will read the opposite. So ang pang negative 1 is yung dulo ng elements mo. So take note class, wala siyang 0 kasi nandito na yung 0 sa una. So, pag negative 1, it will print n. Pag positive 1, it will print only y. So, pabaligtad lang class. Okay? So, here are some examples of using negative and positive index to print a list. We can actually use negative index to print a particular value on the list. So, ito class yung sample ko na pinag-run ko sa PyCharm. So, I have here class, look on the upper part of the screen on the left side. So, meron akong variable na x and then inside the container, ang ginamit ko lang ay puro integer sa list ko. So, ganyan yung pagta-type ng list. You don't need to import anything. You don't need to do anything much. You just have to have use a proper variable for the variable name, and then equal sign, space, and add a square brackets, and then andon yung mga values inside. Keep in mind class, pag string, you use single or double quotation to enclose it. Otherwise, magkakaroon ka ng error. So, if ipiprint natin siya, kagaya na discuss natin, if we want to access negative 1, most likely, the answer would be 3. Kasi baligtad. Pagka negative, magsisimula siya sa dulo. Yun yung bilang niya sa element mo sa list. So, pagka naman 1, it will originally follow the proper indexing notation. Kagaya nung nandito naman sa right side. Ayan. So, ito yung tinginan natin. Okay? So, yung arrow, parang i-indicate lang niya paano niya babasahin yung elements inside your list. Next, in Python, we can create a list and save it with a name. So, for example, ayan, x is equals to 1, 2, 3, Anna, 1.2, and v. And we can print the contents. If we want to print all of the contents of our Python, all we have to do is to use the keyword print and then enclose in a parenthesis yung pangalan ng ating variable, and it will show all of the Python list that we have. So, again, class, recap lang. So far, na-discuss natin how do we access Python using their indexing location. So, ano naman po ang impact or how Python will read the list or elements inside the list using a negative index naman. Ayan. So, now, what you're going to do, ito class ay activity lang. So, mag-i-skip ako sa part na to. Naka-upload na to sa Google Classroom natin. Next is modifying list. So, dito na class papasok yung mga iba't ibang method na pwede nating gamitin kay list. Again, this is just some of the examples that we have. Meron pa tayong count, meron pa tayong count method, and so on. And then index method. So, for now, meron ako ditong sample methods na ginamit, yung pop, yung insert, remove, and append. So, I'm just gonna head over and skip this, close muna this slide and punta tayo kay PyCharm. So, para maipakita ko or ma-demonstrate ko properly how modifying list works. So, as I have mentioned, di ba, diniscuss natin, na-discuss ko class, na-discuss natin before yung mga iba't ibang methods na possible or pwede po kay Python, at yung mga iba't ibang ways that we could access or show a particular element inside our Python list. So, I have here already encoded in my PyCharm compiler. So, first things first is paano ba binabasa ni Python yung isang data? So, paano natin siya ipagra-run sa isang compiler? So, ito class na i-type ko na. So, meron ako ditong variable na x. So, kahit anong pangalan ng variable, okay lang din. Kahit gawin nyo siyang Ana. Basta make sure na pagtatawagin nyo, the rest nung variable ay ganun din yung ipapalit nyo. Like, Ana na yung pangalan ng variable natin. So, palitan natin si x ng Ana. Ayan. So, ito class, makikita nyo, nag-insert na ako ng comment dito. So, if we print Ana, enclose in a parenthesis with a square bracket na negative 1, it pertains to the index na negative 1. So, ito naman yung pag-access natin ng isang value or element sa isang Python code using a negative index notation. So, paano po ba pag negative 1? If ang bilang po natin ay 0, 1, 2. So, ito kasi ay pag nag-start tayo sa the proper negative notation, so 0, 1, 2, ang pang number 1 ay si list na 1. So, ano naman yung negative 1? So, pag negative 1, it will read the list it will start sa dulo. So, ang magiging sagot dito ay 3. So, pag pinag-run natin to, tingin kayo ka sa baba ng screen, ang magiging sagot natin ay 3. Yung nasa 3 sa list. Kasi baligtad po magbasa si negative 1. So, pag negative 1, kung ano yung index notation na ng location nun. And then, pag sinabi natin, automatically, pag negative 1, kahit 5 pa yung size ng integer natin. So, try natin, 7, 8. Ang babasahin nun yung dulo. So, pag-run natin ulit, class. Ay, okay. So, teka. Isa, walang value. Ayan. So, pag pinag-run natin, ang bago ng value ni negative 1 is 8. Basta negative 1 class, automatic, yun yung opposite. Ito yung dulo nung list, which is 8. Kanina 3, kasi 3 yung last ng list natin, elements. Pero ngayon, 8 na. So, if we print 1 naman, yung location ng index, so, ilan yung pang 1? So, regular yung counting natin. Dito tayo sa una mag-start. So, si 1 yung index 0, and then si 2 yung index 1. So, pag pinrint natin si Ana, and then we add a square bracket, ang nilagay natin ay 1, ang magiging sagot, yung pang number 1 sa index, which is 2. Ito yon. So, ito naman, what if we add a slice method or indicator, whatever you call it, basta may colon. Ayan. So, paano naman niya babasahin to? So, class, try nating i-run. So, ito, print Ana. Yung 1, ito yung kanyang start. Ito yung unang start ng ipapakita niya or ipiprint niya. So, makita niyo, di sinama si 1 kasi ito yung pang 0 sa index. 1 yung tinawag natin. So, automatically, 2 yung kanyang ipiprint. So, naglagay tayo negative 1. So, ipiprint niya ay si 7. So, hindi niya isasama yung dulo. Yun yung kabaliktaran naman dito sa slicing indexing. Instead of 8, inumit niya si 8. Dapat si 8. Dito kasi, nung pinrint natin to, si 8 ang lumabas. Ito kasi yung last part nun sa element natin. Dito, pag pinrint natin to 1, and then negative 1 yung hangganan, hanggang 7 lang. Second to the last yung ipiprint niya. Okay? So, next naman, ito namang 1, wala kang sinet na limitation. So, ang start niya, ang gagawin niya, ang start niya ay yung si number 2 and then ipiprint niya lahat. Ito, yung naka-highlight. So, basically, class, yung nasa first part nito, sa left side, ay yung indication ng una mong gustong i-access. Then, yung sa pangalawang part, dito mo ilalagay hangganan. Pag wala ka nilagay, automatically, ipiprint niya lahat ng list. Next naman, we have print Ana, and then 1, and then 0. So, ipiprint lang niya ay walang value kasi baligtad yung ginawa mo. So, ginawa mo, si 2 ang gusto mo i-print, and then ang hangganan ay 0. So, that will result, it will still run, pero it will result to an error. So, what if we change it? We wanted to type it 0 and then 1. So, pag pinag-run natin, class, ayan. So, yung ta-type niya ay 1. So, si 0 po kasi sa index ay si 1 ang 0 sa index, and then hangganan daw niya ay 2. So, nag-stop na siya, di na niya pinrint si 2. Okay? So, ganito lang, class. Next naman is using the append, the pop, and insert method. So, ito, class, yung example na ginawa ko. So, meron akong variable na x. Kailangan kasi may pangalan yung variable natin. We don't need to import anything. We don't need to write list in this particular code. So, all we have to do is to add a square brackets, and then dito natin pagsasama-samahin yung iba't ibang data type. Now, if we wanted to print the whole contents of this one, pag pinrint natin si x, lahat ng value nito ay mapiprint. Tignan nyo, class, dito sa i-highlight ko. Ayan. So, ito naman, pag gumamit tayo ng pop, ang ilalagay lang natin is yung pangalan ng variable, add a dot operator, and then add the method pop. So, inside the argument or inside the parenthesis class, dito naman ang ilalagay natin, basahin nyo, class, yung nasa comment na nilagay ko, based on the index location. Dito ilalagay natin yung index location ng value na gusto nating ipop. So, if we type in x.pop3, so it will pop the value inside yung nasa index na pang number 3, index position or index location na pang number, pang 3. And then we print x, ang bago na niyang value ay ito. So, did you notice the differences, class? Na wala po yung negative 5. Kasi if magbibilang tayo, ito yung pang 0, 1, ito yung pang 2, and then ito yung pang 3 sa index location. So, if we pop this one, if nag-print siya, wala na si negative 5. Ito na yung value niya without negative 5 kasi ito yung pang 3 sa index location. Again, the argument inside our pop, we typically or normally type in the index location. Pag naman insert, ibig sabihin, we wanted to insert a particular element inside our list. So, ang ilalagay natin dito sa first condition would be the index position, kung saan natin gustong ilagay, yung gusto nating idagdag. And then, yung value naman dito sa pangalawa, ito nakalagay value, yung value na gusto nating idagdag na element. Okay? So, isabihin, si Cathy daw na string gusto nating ilagay sa index location 1. So, if we print X, ito'y magiging sagot. So, nakita nyo, si Kat kasi pang number 0 sa bilang. And then, si 1.2, ang mangyayari sa kanya, ito yung pang number 1, madadasog siya. Mapupunta siya sa index location number 2. And then, ang maipapalit sa kanya ay si Cathy. Tingnan nyo class yung naka-highlight. Okay. So, hindi na wala si 1.2, napalitan lang, nadasog lang siya ng isang place kasi pinalitan ni Cathy. What if we wanted to remove another index? So, ganito lang din, type X, pangalan ng variable, that operator, and add the method remove. And then, inside sa condition or argument sa parentheses, ilalagay natin yung value, hindi index location, kundi yung value mismo ng gusto nating i-remove. For this example, I wanted to remove Cathy. So, if ni-remove natin si Cathy at print natin, makikita nyo class, pag pinag-run natin, mawawala na si Cathy kasi ni-remove na natin siya. So, ma'am, what if index location nilagay ko? So, for example, wala ditong index 3. Walang 4. Index location 4. May mangyayari po ba? Kasi value ang sinabi ko eh. Magra-run ba siya? Run natin? Wala po. Magkaka-error. Magkaka-error tong remove function mo kasi index yung nilagay mo. Always keep in mind the value yung dapat mong ilagay. So, balik natin yung ni-remove natin. Ayan. So, next naman, yung append method, same lang din kung paano natin siya ginagamit or ina-add sa array. So, si append method X, that operator, and then append, ang ilalagay natin dito is yung value na gusto nating idagdag. Lagyan ko ng palatandaan, value, hindi index location. So, si append automatically, para lang din siyang si insert. Pero si insert kasi, pwede nating ilagay yung isang value sa specific position na gusto natin sa list. Pero si append, automatically, yung idadagdag natin na value, lalagay natin sa argument na value na gusto nating madagdag, ay nadadagdag sa dulo. Since list ito, halimbawa, ayoko ilagay yung ito magiging print niya. So, nadagdag si kisses sa dulo or sa katabi ng last element dati. So, halimbawa, ayoko ng string ang ilagay ko. Pwede ba? So, pwede po. 6.12. I-run natin. So, as you could see, nadagdag yung 6.12. Nasa dulo din siya. So, ganito lang class yung mga basic methods na meron tayo. Okay? So, how do we use the count method naman? So, ito class, sa tapos ko kasi ito originally isiningit. Pero pwede rin to sa list. So, disregard the variable name. So, we have here this tuple as a variable name. So, all you have to do is to type in a value inside the list. So, ano po ba ginagawa naman ni count method? So, another method din to, kagaya ni append, ni pop, ni insert. So, si count method, it counts how many occurrences nagkaroon yung isang value mo sa ilang beses siya na ulit. So, kung isang beses lang siya na element, wala siyang kahawig, then 1 lang ang sasagot niya. So, try natin ipag-run. Ang pangalan nito ay countpy. Ayan. So, 4 yung sinagot natin. Kasi ang nakalagay dito, paano siya ilagay? So, first things first class, this tuple, pangalan ng ating variable, mag-declare tayo ng second variable, any pangalan ng variable, okay lang din. Dito ang ginawa ko ay x, and then equal sign this tuple, pangalan ng variable natin dito, kung saan nakalagay yung list, and then that operator, and we add the method count. Inside the argument, at ilalagay mo yung value. Value po itong 5, hindi ito index location, value. 5 is a value, not an index location. Okay? Just to be clarify on this one. So, this is not an index location. Ito yung existing na value sa loob ng list mo. Gusto mo kasi i-count ilang beses siya na ulit. Hindi lang to actually class applicable sa numbers. Pwede din siya sa string or sa character. So, inside the argument is the value you want to be counted. So, nilagay natin is si 5. Gusto natin bilangin ilang beses na ulit si 5 sa list. So, if we print x, ang ilalabas niya ay 4 kasi 4 times na merong 5 na value sa list mo. Halimbawa, yung 1 naman. Gawin naman nating 1. Ang ilalagay lang niya ay 2 kasi twice na merong identical na value sa loob ng list mo. So, yung 1, dalawa ang occurrence niya. So, yun lang ginagawa ni count method. Okay? So, yun lang class. Again, it's a rough with our, it's a rough or fin na yung ating topic about dito sa mga basic and common methods kay list. Next naman is yung mga basic at common methods at introduction naman about kay tuple. So, ano yung pinagkaiba niya kay list naman? So, parehas lang din kasi actually class si Python tsaka parehas class actually si Python tsaka si tuples. Halos. It also allows different data types inside a single collection. So, ang pinagkaiba lang nila class is how they handle the datas inside. So, I will stop this recording.